accidentally turned the camera off there. All of this stuff here, while being careful not to get anything down in our oil sump down there, and still making sure we get enough of it off that it's going to seal properly when we put this cover back on. Now, the right way to do this, of course, is to take the entire thing apart and have it cleaned properly. Can't do any sort of acid bath because it's aluminum, but you could still have it cleaned in some way, you know, professionally, but it's not really in the cards. Ain't got time for that. So we're just gonna scrape it all off, make sure we seal it properly, and that will have to do. So get this last bottom bit here. Got this little scraper a while back, pretty nifty little thing. It's actually made for the plastic ones. I don't know if I don't have one of them over here, but you know, you just put a metal razor in there and tighten it down and it works just fine. Wouldn't trust it with anything with a lot of pressure, but we don't want to be putting a lot of pressure on this anyway because of it being aluminum and all. So, you know, still works. So get all this stuff off of here, but kind of throwing this whole channel together because do a lot of crazy stuff with this car. I have a lot of fun with it, so I figured may as well show it. And I ended up having to teach myself a lot of stuff with this engine because I blew it up a few years back, and you know, it's a 2016 WRX. It's over there. Maybe we'll get to that some other time. But blew up the engine, not blew up the engine, but rod knock, you know, engine died. So I was kind of faced with a situation where I either fix it myself or I had to get rid of the car. Because at the time I couldn't afford, you know, to pay somebody for a rebuild or, you know, to buy a crate engine or anything crazy like that. So ended up just taught myself how to rebuild it. And unfortunately the engine was new at the time. So I had to kind of figure a lot of stuff out. There wasn't a lot of resources or a lot of, you know, places where I could go to just learn it. Well, it was frustrating for sure. And, you know, that's what I get for modifying a fairly new, untested engine when, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. So, happens, whatever. But I wanted to kind of start recording this so that other people who are in my shoes can hopefully learn from my mistakes, and you know, maybe we can do some cool stuff together. So yeah, so we're gonna get this guy slapped together. Originally I had wanted to put a new clutch and potentially engine mounts in before I put this back in, but now that I've actually found what appeared to be a timing issue, I think we might just slap her together so I can see if she works. Because, you know, I'm impatient. So, I mean, it's not going to be tonight by any stretch of the means. So I got to put it back in, and I don't have fluids. I got to order new oil, you know, and other things before I can put it back, or, excuse me, get it back to running. Isn't that wonderful? Perks of the job. So, but we'll get this guy back up and running. I'd actually put the timing chain on, but then I realized that I still need to scrape all the gasket material off, so I took it back off, and now, you know, I have to put it all back together. But I actually already timed the right hand side of the engine, so we'll redo that, and then we will you know, do the other side and probably call it a night for that. I think it's like, I don't know, 10 o'clock here. Couldn't sleep, so figured I may as well do something productive and get this guy rolling. But yeah, while I scrape off more of this gasket material, guess I can get you guys caught up to where we're at so far, since I haven't documented anything else or anything that I've done up until this point. So it's a 2016 WRX. It has a built motor, Manley pistons, Manley rods, GSE power division, 30-pound springs, front-mounted intercooler, teal. I never pronounce that right. I don't know. Blow-off valve, an exhaust that I don't remember the manufacturer, but it's a it's straight piped exhaust, 3-inch, catless. Yeah, quite a few other things. Tying coilovers, a few other cosmetic stuff, but we can get into all that later. Let's get the engine back in and working, and then we'll deal with all the, you know, the pretty stuff after the fact. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with this. Long term, I would like to do obviously 85. Not going to get too much more power out of this setup, only because this engine's kind of limited by the turbo. This twin scroll turbo that the FA20s come with doesn't have a great volumetric efficiency above, I believe it's 400 wheel horsepower. Anything more than that, and at least from what I've read, you're not going to get much out of it. So don't really want to replace just the twin scroll to do all that. I'd rather just put a large single scroll, probably do like a battery relocation and all that stuff. So hopefully when this video blows up and you know, get 1 million subscribers or something crazy like that, then we can do that. But let's hold our horses. I haven't even published the video yet, so go from there. All right, that should be good enough. So we're gonna still need to do some more cleaning on the chain cover. That's actually a pain to clean. Annoyingly enough, I cleaned my first one before I realized I had to replace it, because the oil pump is integrated into the chain cover, which is the biggest downside to the way that the FA20 is set up. Because if you need to replace your pump, you have to replace the entire front cover, because it's all integrated. Unlike the EJs, where you can just pop the pump out, pop a new one in. If you want to go, you know, to a larger, like a 14 millimeter, you know, it's probably pretty big, but you know what I mean, a bigger oil pump, you can, you know, pick and choose and kind of plug and play however you want. Whereas this one, you don't really have any options. You have the OEM cover, and that's basically it. So, you know, and the cover's not super cheap. It was a few $100s when I rebuilt my engine, so, you know, have time to replace the entire cover just for the front, just for the oil pump is, you know, rather annoying, but who knows, maybe they'll get some sort of workaround, some sort of aftermarket part eventually, once this engine has the same part support that the EJ has, if that ever happens. EJ has about 1 million different companies making parts for it, so. All right, so got this guy cleaned up, at least well enough that it's gonna seal and seat properly. So for the time being, that should do it. So let's get this chain on. There we go. Set you guys up over there. phone about that. There we go. All right, take two. So whenever you're doing any sort of work on any sort of engine internals, you got to be very careful to keep everything clean. When I leave the engine, I have a clean bag that I drape over it so that it's not getting any dirt or debris or anything like that. And then I have these, like, you know, just cheap bins that I keep, you know, clean on the inside, aside from the oil that was on it. But, you know, no dirt or anything like that. But that keeps, you know, all the parts and stuff clean. And then I also have two separate ones, so I'm keeping the left side and the right side separate because you can't mix and match those parts. So, I dropped it earlier, so let all the fizz die down. Mountain Dew, hit me up if you want to sponsor me. All right. So we got a few different things on this system, right? So obviously we have our chain. I'll show you all that in a minute. But then we also have our two of these riders here. And then we're going to have a chain tensioner here. So I already pushed it in, and then it's held in place with that little Allen key. And all this is in the factory service manual. This is not by any stretch of the means meant to be a, you know, all-around how-to video. If you guys are doing something like this, you know, look at the factory service manual. I have it pulled up on my laptop next to me. If you don't do this right, you introduce valves to pistons, and bad things happen when you do that. So don't do it wrong. This isn't the thing to wing by any stretch of the means. In fact, I'm redoing this because it wasn't done right in the first place. So you live, you learn, and you move on. So the first thing we're going to start with is on this chain. I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's like a bluish gray color link right there. And then on our crank pulley over here, there's a mark. So that's going to match up with a mark. So get that guy over there. All right. And then next, there is a little notch on the top of this pulley. All right. So I already lined up. There's an arrow right here on this pulley. And that's supposed to be 25 degrees down from the 9 o'clock position. And then I lined up this one over here, which is supposed to be 25 degrees up from the 3 o'clock position on this side. So these these cam sprockets are already lined up. All right. So the weird thing, or kind of the special thing about doing it on this side is this intake cam here. One of the cams has 3 lobes instead of 2 because it runs the mechanical fuel pump on the top. So this thing will not turn at all. So you have to use a spanner guy like this to turn it. But the other one should be able to be turned by hand. All right. Now, those lines are going to match up with these little pink links. So I'm going to line this guy up here. There's one. Get this guy up here. And then kind of constantly like looking back and forth to make sure that they're all lined up properly. Because if it's not, it's just a royal pain. So to get this guy on, sometimes you have to put a little bit of rotation on this guy, because like I said, it's got that third lobe and it just kind of doesn't want to do anything. Just be careful, watch your fingers, because trust me when I say you do not want to get your finger in between that sprocket and that chain if that wrench slips off. Ask me how I know. I have a scar somewhere from the first time I did it, so. All right, so next gonna double check our lines to make sure everything's lined up properly. It's nice doing this, honestly, because 99 times out of 100 when I'm working on a car or something like this, I talk to myself. So now I can at least feel a little bit better about it. And I can talk to you guys instead. So we got a line matched up here. We got a line matched up here. We have our gray link matched up with our little mark on our crank sprocket. Next, we're going to do the passive riser. If you'll notice, these guys aren't circular shapes there and there. That's because it's actually made to float. So I'll show you. There we go. Got that guy in there. Alright. So we got this little guy, little screw, Allen key. So this guy slides in, but it's not made, it's just made to hold it in place. It's not made to actually tighten down. The reason being is this piece here is made to float. It's supposed to have movement in it. That's why these guys are slotted instead of like an actual tight hole. There was a torque spec for this in the service manual. For this, I'm content on my own car to just tighten it by hand. If I was working on somebody else's car, obviously I'd be a lot more, you know, by the book. But in this case, as long as it still has movement in it like it's supposed to, it's okay. All right, so this guy goes in there. That guy's nice and tight. There we go. All right, next we have our tensioning arm, or not really an arm. I'm sure there's a technical name for it, but this thing that it slides on, right? So it has a wrist pin that it fits in there, and then it slides down like that. And then that is where this guy comes into play. So this is our tensioner. All right, so this guy slides into here. It's a good system, and I know why they switched to it. Like, all that makes sense, but it's kind of a pain to work on sometimes. So, but sometimes you just got to deal with it. All right. So we got the guy on 10mm bolts. I have not lost my 10mm, so we're good to go on that. Pop this guy on here. All right, good to go. Our tensioner is nice and tight. I recently rebuilt this engine, so normally I'd be replacing all of the software, the O-rings and stuff like that. But like I said, we're in a bit of a hurry to get this up and running, so break a few rules and just reuse those O-rings. We might be coming back here to do this again, but at the moment, it's a risk we need to take. So, yeah. So that is this side done. So now we can just start rotating stuff now, right? Because now our camshafts and then in turn the valves are now connected to our crankshaft. So when our crankshaft rotates, this side of the engine also rotates. But the problem is this side does not. These guys are still free floating, right? I can actually rotate these guys however I want. So make sure that those are lined up. So we can just do kind of rotate stuff willy-nilly. So we just got to make sure that we follow the directions, do it the right way. So let me make sure I got the right next step, and then we'll continue. All right, so the next step actually is to rotate it. Always want to make sure before you start doing that. So let's see here. So this is the piece that drives our oil pump. So I just have this on here so I can use it to rotate. So this mark right here, that guy right there, so that is your key that holds that sprocket onto the crankshaft. So that is the mark we're looking for. So when we rotate this, we want this guy to be on the dead bottom, 6 o'clock, and it gives us a minus 10 degrees in the 5 o'clock position. So between here and then here, that needs to be lined up when this little arrow and this little arrow are facing each other right here. Like that. Lost you. I don't know how much I missed, but whatever. But yeah, it's all done. So now, rotate her around, see if it worked. All right. There we go. Arrows lined up. I'd show you, but like I said, phone's almost dead, so it'll be all right. So that's timing chain. So next, probably in the morning, we gotta clean off the cover. Once we get that cleaned off, we need to get more RTV. Go to the store, grab that. Still undecided if I'm gonna wait to replace the clutch. We'll see. But definitely happy with that. That should fix a lot of the issues I was having. It still ran, but it was throwing a lot of weird codes and errors and stuff like that, so I'm hoping that this will alleviate that. The thing is with this engine, it has... I keep turning it off. Let's figure that out. Anyway, it has... AVCS, so it's basically variable valve timing, but it can advance or retard in either direction. So the thing is, the ECU will try to fix it, so even if the timing is off a little bit, it will try to rotate it, but it was throwing weird codes and it was just having performance issues and all this other stuff, so it didn't blow up, but it didn't work right. So obviously not good. I mean, I was on a safe tune and it just wasn't working right. So hopefully this will fix it. We shall see. If any of you have ever been in this position before, it is not always the most fun. Sometimes a little bit on the nerve-wracking side, because you check something and it didn't work, and then you check something else and then that doesn't work, and so you kind of just learn to maybe a bit not necessarily morbid, but you don't get your hopes up. You just kind of roll with it, and it's all about the process. So it's a lot of fun. But I guess we can look at the car real quick. She's dirty. Real dirty. So, I don't know how much you guys can see, but got a nice, I think it's a racing, whatever, however you pronounce that, shift knob. Got that guy. Got a little oil pressure gauge on there. A little bit of dress-up stuff. Looking pretty nifty. We can look at it some other time when it's bright out. I currently have my AC compressor sitting on a chair because I don't have the equipment to recover the refrigerant, and I don't want to pay someone to do it, so I just, you know, left it in there. Yeah. So, we also got that guy down there. It's a EJ205, and then we also got this guy over here, which is I believe a 5-speed manual transmission that goes with that. So maybe after we get done with all this stuff, we'll take that apart and see how it works. Do fun stuff. So, well, I am going to bed. Catch you on the morning.